You miss someone who made your life miserable, and that terrifies you. Let's know. But before moving ahead in the video, like the video and subscribe to the channel so that we get motivation. There are people you miss, even though you know your life became quieter after they left. Not better immediately, but quieter. And that confuses you. Because logically, you know the relationship was exhausting. Maybe they ignored you. Maybe they made you anxious. Maybe every conversation felt unpredictable. And yet your brain still reaches for them. Late at night, you think about texting them. You replay old memories that suddenly feel softer than they really were. You miss someone you already decided was wrong for you. So the question becomes, if they hurt you, why does your mind still treat them like home? What makes this feeling so difficult is that it attacks your sense of identity. You start wondering if you made the wrong decision. Or worse, whether your standards were fake. Because part of you remembers the stress, but another part remembers the emotional intensity. And the brain often confuses intensity with importance. That is one of the first psychological traps happening here. Your nervous system does not record relationships like a camera. It records them like an emotional survival map, which means your brain is not asking, was this relationship healthy? It is asking, was this relationship emotionally familiar? Those are very different questions. A lot of emotionally unhealthy relationships create something psychologists call intermittent reinforcement. This is the same reward pattern that makes slot machines addictive. Not constant reward, unpredictable reward. Some days they were warm, some days distant, some days loving, some days emotionally unavailable. And your brain became trapped in anticipation. Because dopamine is not strongest when you receive affection. It becomes strongest when affection feels uncertain. The uncertainty itself creates obsession. That is why stable love can initially feel boring. To someone whose nervous system was trained on unpredictability, your brain learned to associate emotional inconsistency with emotional significance. So when the relationship ends, you are not only grieving the person, you are grieving the stimulation cycle your brain adapted to. And this creates a strange contradiction. You can miss someone without actually wanting your real life with them back. Because what you miss is often not the relationship itself. You miss specific emotional moments. The late night conversations, the rare moments they finally understood you, the feeling of finally getting emotional relief after anxiety. Your brain isolates the reward moments and slowly blurs the emotional cost around them. This is called memory bias. The brain does this because emotionally charged memories become easier to retrieve than emotionally neutral ones, especially during loneliness, especially at night, especially when your current life feels emotionally flat. And loneliness changes memory in dangerous ways. When humans feel socially disconnected, the brain becomes more emotionally nostalgic. Not because the past was necessarily better, but because the brain prioritizes familiarity during uncertainty. From an evolutionary perspective, social connection meant survival. Even painful connection could feel safer than emotional isolation. So when you miss someone toxic, your brain is not always saying, that relationship was good. Sometimes it is simply saying, that relationship was known. And the brain often prefers familiar pain over unfamiliar peace. That sentence alone explains years of confusing attachment. There is another layer most people never notice. Sometimes you do not miss the person. You miss the version of yourself that existed around them. Maybe you felt more desired, more emotional, more alive, more needed. Certain relationships activate hidden identities inside you. The caretaker, the rescuer, the pursued one, the emotionally intense version of yourself. And when the relationship ends, those identities disappear too. Now, your brain is not only grieving a person, it is grieving a psychological role, which is why some breakups feel like ego death. Your routines change. Your emotional patterns disappear. Even your internal dialogue becomes unfamiliar. This is where many people make a mistake. They interpret emotional withdrawal symptoms as proof of love. But the nervous system reacts to attachment loss similarly to substance withdrawal, especially after emotionally inconsistent relationships. Studies in attachment psychology show that romantic rejection activates many of the same neural pathways involved in physical pain and craving, which explains why your thoughts become intrusive, why you check their social media even when it hurts, why your brain keeps searching for emotional resolution. The mind hates unfinished emotional patterns, especially patterns connected to attachment. But understanding this changes something important. Missing someone is not always evidence that you belong together. Sometimes it is evidence that your nervous system became conditioned around them. And conditioning can feel very similar to love. So how do you actually loosen this attachment without pretending you never cared? The answer is not emotional suppression. Suppressing thoughts usually strengthens them. Psychologists call this ironic rebound. The more aggressively you try not to think about something, the more the brain monitors for it, which keeps the emotional loop active. Instead, the goal is to retrain emotional association, slowly, quietly, and in ways the nervous system can actually process. Here's the first principle. Separate familiarity from compatibility. Your brain automatically trusts what feels familiar, But familiarity is based on repetition, not health. A chaotic relationship, repeated over years, can feel emotionally correct, simply because your nervous system practiced it. So when you think about them, pause and ask, do I miss who they truly were? Or do I miss what my brain became used to expecting? That question interrupts automatic emotional fusion. Second, stop romanticizing emotional intensity. Many people mistake emotional volatility for deep connection, but emotionally healthy relationships usually feel calmer because the nervous system is not constantly scanning for danger. Your brain can become addicted to emotional spikes: the reunion after conflict, the relief after silence, the validation after rejection. That cycle creates biochemical highs and lows. Real stability often feels emotionally quieter at first, not because it lacks depth, but because your survival system is finally not overloaded. A simple real-life example. Notice how some people feel anxious when someone texts back consistently, not because consistency is bad, but because unpredictability became their emotional normal. Third, create new emotional reference points. The brain heals through replacement experiences, not empty avoidance. If every meaningful emotional memory connects back to one person, your nervous system keeps treating them as psychologically central. So you need new experiences that create emotional meaning without them. Not dramatic transformations, small experiences, a peaceful morning walk, a deep conversation with someone safe, finishing a quiet evening without emotional chaos. These moments matter because the brain updates through repeated evidence. Neuroplasticity depends on repetition. The nervous system slowly learns. Safety can also feel emotionally real. Fourth, pay attention to what loneliness is trying to attach itself to. Loneliness often behaves like emotional hunger, and hungry minds romanticize fast emotional relief. This is why people reconnect with unhealthy exes during vulnerable periods. Not because the relationship changed, but because emotional deprivation lowers psychological standards. So before reaching out, ask yourself, do I genuinely miss them? Or do I just miss emotional contact? Those are not the same feeling, and learning the difference changes your future relationships. Eventually, something strange begins to happen. You stop craving the person specifically and start understanding the pattern more clearly. You realize your mind was trying to return to emotional familiarity, not emotional peace. That realization is painful at first, but freeing later, because it means your attachment was not proof that you were weak. It was proof that your brain adapted. Human beings are adaptation machines. The nervous system always tries to create stability from repetition, even unhealthy repetition. So maybe healing is not about forcing yourself to stop missing people. Maybe it is about learning not to worship every feeling your nervous system produces. You can miss someone and still understand they were not good for you. You can feel attachment without treating it as destiny. And sometimes the deepest form of emotional maturity is realizing your mind can crave what your life has already outgrown.